everyone. Welcome to the new episode of ITL Voices. My name is Sanjana Arora, and I'm the Director of Media and Publicity and your host for this episode. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Yonida. Yonida works at Oziel Law. She's the business and intellectual property lawyer who works closely with innovative startups at all stages of their business. Yonida also leads the firm's knowledge and management legal innovation projects. With that, I would like to hand it over to Yonida to tell us a little bit about herself and her journey in the legal profession.
Thank you so much, Sanjana. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invite. As you mentioned, I am an IP and business lawyer at Oziel Law. I moved to Canada around 6 years ago, and it took a lot of interesting curves to get to where I am today. So it would be nice to share what I've been through and maybe hopefully help someone else.
Thanks, Yonida, for sharing that with us. We want to know what inspired you to take this move to Canada.
So as I mentioned, I moved here 6 years ago. Before that, I used to practice in Greece. I was primarily doing litigation. And when I moved here, I wanted to explore something new. So instead of just doing what I know, I took a step back. I started my LLM at Osgood and focused mostly on designing my own LLM instead of doing the Canadian common law, which was very popular at the time. I did the general LLM, and I took business and IT courses because I wanted to learn more. And after that, my interests took me to discover new paths and launch a new career. So what I wanted to do, going back to your question, what inspired me to move was I always wanted to do another LLM abroad because I had just completed an LLM in Greece. And when I moved here, I took it as an opportunity to explore things that I hadn't tried before. And I stayed on, although it was the intention to really try to stay on. And I stayed, and I pursued a career in an area that I was more interested in.
Just a follow-up question from that. Was your LLM instrumental to your transition to the market in Canada?
Absolutely, it was, but not necessarily because of the LLM itself. And this is something that I usually advise foreign trained lawyers when they pursue an LLM in Canada. An LLM itself will not be enough because you are in a class with how many other students? 100? Everyone is doing kind of the same thing. They are either pursuing an LLM so that they can meet their NCA requirements, or they're doing an LLM in international business law. You will have done the same courses as everyone else. So what distinguishes you from everyone else? And Osgood or UFT or any other law school is a platform that gives you access to a million things that you can do while you are their student. So instead of just focusing on the courses, which is very important because you really have to establish a rapport with the professors and your colleagues because they're going to be in your network later on, there are so many other things you can do. You can participate in moots, you can participate in internships, you can write blog posts, you can collaborate with your professors. So if you do all these things, it is inevitable that you will establish stronger relationships. And later on, that will lead to professional opportunities. So instead of you really focusing on getting your grades and being a good student, I think when we move to Canada or in a different jurisdiction and we're thinking of staying in that jurisdiction to work, we're not students anymore. So we have to start thinking as professionals, growing their network. And it's the people that you meet in the LLM or through the LLM that will be in your network and help you later on. And those people will stay in your network as you grow in your career. So it's very important that you do things with them that distinguish you from your classmates.
That's a very good advice on the holistic approach. Now, taking this back to when you worked in Greece, could you share with us the kind of work that you've done in Greece and how those skills helped you build a career here?
It's not very different. And this is what I advise students is because when they try to compare what they do back home with Canada, they focus on the differences. And this is definitely something that employers don't want to hear. They don't care about the differences. They want to see what is transferable, and it's your job to help them. And this is what I try to think every time because I practice litigation, and litigation and business are night and day. But at the same time, you're dealing with clients, and the client management skills are not that different. It helps you lead with empathy, understand no one wants to pay. So when you're conveying how much you spend on a bill, So these are the things that are international. So this is something that you should definitely mention when you're conveying what you did back home. So client management didn't really change, and also common law and civil law. It seems like it's so different, and that if you practice in one, you cannot practice in another one. But basically, it's not. It's the law. So it either comes from a statute or from a civil code or from legislation and from the decisions of the judges. So basically, you rely on the decisions of on the court decisions to interpret a statutory law. So it's very similar. So the analysis of the law and the client management skills, they are the same. And I feel like this is something that candidates, when they moved from different jurisdictions, they don't really stress that enough. And it's very important that employers see you translate those skills into this environment, and it's your job to help them understand that.
Right. So you acquired a position on Bay Street very early in your career as an ITL. How did that happen, and was that your goal all along? Additionally, what advice would you like to give to ITLs who want to establish themselves on Bay Street?
Yes, Bay Street. When you move from a different jurisdiction to Canada, all you hear about is Bay Street, and it feels like it's the accomplishment, the biggest accomplishment to go on Bay Street, because it's very competitive. And what I would hear when I moved here is that they accept over 1,000 applications, and then they only hire 20 students max. And so it felt like a challenge. But how I landed there was totally by chance, because when I was doing my LLM, Osgood had partnered with the Institute for the Future of Law Practice, which was a boot camp that took place in different locations. One of them, and the one that I went to, was Chicago at the Northwestern Law. And it was a boot camp of 3 weeks trying innovative things like contract automation or coding and legal tech, or like speaking with a lot of general counsel about how they improve efficiencies in-house. So I was very interested in innovation because I had just launched a legal tech startup in Greece, and I was with a group of co-founders. We were managing it remotely. So I think that was the reason why I was selected to attend the bootcamp. Osgood was just, it was the first year, so they didn't know how it would go. So they only chose 5 students. And I was the only LLM student that they chose. Everyone else was a GD student. And they took us, but as a requirement to be accepted to this program, was that you had to have accepted an offer from an employer to do your internship. And when I saw this program, I'm like, great, I'm going to go to Chicago. I'm going to do this. I didn't even know who the employers were. And when I was doing my first round of interviews with Osgood, I think I asked how many candidates are there, and I expected them to accept a large number of students, and they're like, no, we're just discussing 5 positions, and I didn't even have an idea about who the employers were. So after I passed that first round of interviews, which was a lot of questions about behavioral questions, and it was my first interaction with those type of questions, we received a list of the employers, and it was basically 4 Bay Street firms and 1 legal tech company. And they asked us if we had any preferences, who we wanted to work with. I had no preference, and I was so surprised that it was Bay Street to begin with. So I interviewed with 4 of them, and I landed a position with Bennett Jones. So, and I in their knowledge management team, and I got to work with the knowledge management director and the lawyers, and it was very cool because I was training software to read contracts, and I was basically working with the lawyers that had done the work that I wanted to see from a legal and from an innovation perspective. So it was 2 in 1. And this is how I landed at Bennett Jones at the time. And it was a period where we were applying for summer positions. So it really gives you a good opportunity to speak with the lawyers as an insider. So, and tell them about who you are and what you've done, and how, where you want to go and how they can help you. And the best part about this is that they don't see you as one of the other students or any other student that is just looking to go on a coffee meeting. You are one of them. And it's very important to be perceived as one of someone, of an insider. And after that internship ended. And in the meantime, I had just a colleague through Osgood was doing her summer at a firm across the street, so at McCarthy Tetro, and she was working with the marketing team in the period between summer and articling. So she had just started articling, and there was a position in the marketing team and an innovation team. So I just asked her to send my resume, and they invited me for an interview, and I was hired there. It was a series of events, but also it's through the opportunities that you pursue, through the opportunities that you are given. So Osgood and the network that you establish through Osgood.
That's a great story you shared with us, and it's very motivating to hear that. You touched upon this a little bit, and we all face multiple challenges in our careers. What would you say was your biggest challenge that you faced at the beginning of your journey?
Challenges. If I had a list, if I had to create a list, and if I got a penny for everything I added there, I think at the beginning is the fact that you move to a different country and you bring some self-confidence, this self-esteem that you've built based on the things that you've achieved. And when you move to a different country, it feels like because people don't really have time, and everyone, when they meet a new person, they try to see where they relate, what they have in common. And when they have nothing in common with you, they don't really understand your background. And it feels like they're giving you the impression that they don't appreciate what you've done. And at some point, when you hear it a lot, when you hear the question of, but what's your Canadian experience? What have you done in Canada? You start internalizing it. And until you reach the point when you say, okay, I've done nothing before I moved to Canada, and you may come at different ages. So that can be very shocking when you are like in your 30s or 40s. And you say, okay, I've done nothing. So I start from scratch. I have to prove myself all over. And this is exciting and motivating, but at the same time, it can really ruin your self-esteem. So finding that and using that as a motivator instead of something to just help you give up is an internal game that it's something that you have to do with yourself. So that was one of the biggest challenges. Another one is that not everyone comes with finances, with the financial situation to help them pay everything you're required to pay, including the NCA accreditation, masters, your living expenses in Toronto, which is not negligible. So understanding the sources of finances in Canada, or how you can navigate it so that you can use the best opportunities and the best, basically, if you come here as a permanent resident instead of coming as a student, a lot of the students that I meet at Osgood, they have the requirement and the background to apply for PR. And if they did, they would move to Canada, they would have access to OSAP, to the provincial funds, and they would have access to lines of credit with like minimum interest rates. And no one usually uses those because they're like, I don't need money. I can pay for my LLM. I don't need a line of credit. But you just missed on the opportunity to get a source of funding with minimum interest rates, or OSAP, and the grants it gives you. You don't really know these things. And sometimes you just make the next move of I'm going to apply to do the LLM and then I'm going to take it from there. And instead of thinking of all the immigration considerations of if you are thinking of making a move, make a strategic one and start thinking of, okay, you want to go to Canada, do an LLM, so apply for a study permit and then for a work permit and then for a PR. Why not have a PR before? Why not eliminate one of the struggles of how am I going to explain to an employer where my study permit or my visa limitations of working here, instead of just do that in advance. So speak with an immigration consultant, which they normally don't charge you anything to give you this advice. And if I had done that in advance, I think I would have eliminated one of the biggest struggles, because I had a lot of start and stop because of immigration. And when you are really so eager to make the next step, it can really be a pain to focus on immigration.
Right.
So I have a list of great other challenges, but I don't want to discourage anyone. So these are enough for now.
Now that we've spoken about challenges, we would like to know that while juggling multiple roles at a particular time, how do you go through the work-life balance, and how do you achieve that in your day-to-day life?
Yes. So this is something I discuss with my friends a lot. It feels like every stage of our lives, we're required to do whatever we used to do before, plus something else. And you're supposed to do everything else. Great, perfect. You're supposed to know how to do them fast. And so you study. Sure, you study, but then now you don't have the luxury to just study. You have to study and work at the same time. When you do that, you don't have just that luxury. You have to study for your bar exams, for your NCAs. So it feels like every stage has some added responsibility. And this is something that what helped me when I was going through that phase is understand that it's a wave and that it's not going to be like this forever. So it's a wave of 3 months, it's a wave of 5 months, but then you're going to relax. So, and also try to think of the time that you need to allocate to which. There were periods in my life where I was working and then I would come home and study for the bar or study for the NCAs or maintain 2 part-time jobs and do the LLM while studying for the NCAs. So it felt like I had 4 full-time jobs because the LLM itself was a full-time job. Doing all these jobs to have a decent income to sustain myself was also a full-time job. And studying and doing the accreditation, it takes time. And it's basically splitting your day into 3 different buckets and not worrying about the other bucket while you are doing this, because otherwise you cannot really concentrate. So if I'm working, I'm just working. If I'm studying, I'm just studying. And then it means that I have already allocated the time for this. But it requires a lot of discipline. And that's why understanding that it's a wave, it helps you. Otherwise, it feels like it never ends. So when you know that, okay, the NCAs, I have 8 or 5 NCAs, I will do them during my LLM, which means that I have to dedicate this amount of time. For the LLM, then I have my evenings or my weekends, which means that those have to be very structured. And when you move to Canada, it's not just you have to do all these things. You also have to network, and which means that I'll allocate time for things that you cannot predict, and which again makes you more productive and more efficient when you do have the time. But everyone works in different ways, so having a support system is very important. Like having someone that can take care of cleaning the house or feeding you when you don't have time to cook. It's very important. And for people that do this, I did have a support system, but for people that don't, I think it's admirable that they are going through this and doing everything themselves.
That's some great advice, Yonida, and I will definitely have great takeaways from this, considering I have my bar exams coming this year. Now, coming to mentorship, how would you advise ITLs to seek out mentorship?
Mentorship. This is a mentorship and networking. These are words that everyone throws around, and it feels like you have to adapt them into the jurisdiction that you're entering. So something that we're discussing in terms of the comparison with Greece is that in Greece, you would know someone, so this would come naturally. In Canada, it feels you come with 0 connections, or if you have family, with their limited connections. So when you start reaching out to people, it's very important that you don't necessarily need to name it as mentorship. You just need to make some connections with people that will keep you top of mind when they hear about opportunities similar to the ones that you seek. And that's why it's very important, because whenever people ask me about, tell me about their process or tell me that I'm looking for a job, what I ask them is, who knows about you looking for this specific job? Because this is how you're going to get it, from someone that will hear about it and will tell you, apply to this. And this is definitely from experience. It took a lot of trial and error to apply to positions and not hear back until I get to the point where you realize that it's who you're recommended by. So mentorship means that you are looking to meet people that have either gone through what you're going through, or that are working in a setting at a law firm, or doing the work that you want to do. So both buckets of people will help you with giving you the piece of advice that will help you navigate the stage that you're at, or help you show you the end of the tunnel. of where you want to go. When you meet, and that's why it's important to understand why you're meeting each of them. When you're meeting someone that has been through your stages, you're basically asking them, how can I skip some steps, or how can I make it smoother? And also, if you hear about anything that matches my background, I may come from a background of like working in-house or working for a litigation firm, or so when you hear about those positions, keep in mind, it's not, you're not asking them to employ you, you're not asking them to hire you, but you're basically asking for a favor for someone to keep in mind. But it's also important that mentorship means that it's a constant thing. It's an ongoing relationship. So you have to basically tell them where you're at every couple of months, or try to refresh your memory. I've met students the last 6 years that are telling me about their process, and I never saw them again. If I met them now, I'd probably not remember their names. But I had students that reach out to me every couple of months telling me, I applied for this, I completed my NCAs, now I'm studying for the bar. Any advice that you may have for me now? Or who do you think I should speak to? I'm looking for this. Do you know someone? So this ongoing relationship makes me remember them and makes them establish this relationship where I can refer them to someone. If I speak with someone today, I will not be able to feel the comfort to be able to tell someone, you should give them a chance. But if I've seen their progress, if I've seen their struggles and what they've done to overcome the challenges, or overcome their own limitations, because this is we're here to grow. And when someone witnesses that, they become part of your journey. So it's easier for them to advocate for you. So mentorship is an ongoing thing with people that you really take them with you along the journey. And also, as the partner that I work with at the firm always says, to sell, you have to pick people like you. So it's easier to make someone like you when they've seen you, they've seen the background, the backstage. And you're selling yourself, you're selling your experience. So let everyone that you want to be part of see how you got to where you're getting to.
Thanks a lot, Yonida, for that and simplifying the definition of mentorship for all of us. You touched upon this a little bit, but we would like to know more about how should one approach networking, since it can get really overwhelming and can also lead to burnout.
Oh, tell me about it. So this is a personal story. After 5 years of really doing everything, applying everywhere, going through all the stages of recruitment and completing all the requirements and getting called to the bar, you're finding yourself during the pandemic and not getting hired back. So you have two challenges. How do you network, and how do you network during a pandemic? And I think I approach it as a challenge, but also it was one of the ways for me to see, if I can do this, I can do anything. So how do you network during a pandemic? When you move to Canada, you know some people. So it's either from your, if you do an LLM, either from your LLM, or you may go to events. Law firms do events all the time. Now, even if now it's remote, you still have the opportunity to follow up with some of the lawyers to say, I attended this was great. I would love to have a 30-minute chat with you, coffee chat. So as you create this network of people, they may be in different industries, they may be in different positions, they may be doing different things, you just like them. So as you progress and you can, you're more certain about where you are and you know exactly what you need. So I need an architect position, I need a summer position, I need a first-year associate position. You are more, it's easier for them to connect you to opportunities. So all the people that I had met in the last 5 years that I had never asked for a favor, I got to the point where I could say, I was just called to the bar. I wasn't hired back due to the pandemic. So can we just schedule a 30-minute Zoom coffee? And I just want to learn more about how you got to where you are and who do you think that I should speak to? And after doing this, I think I spent the first 2 months just applying and not hearing back, where I got discouraged. And I said, maybe I need to change my approach. So I started doing this. I started going back to everyone I knew and asking them, you work at this firm, can you connect me with the head of that department, which I want to practice in? So let's say tech law. And then they would connect me with them, which meant that that other partner would really dedicate the time to either respond or to really try to accommodate their peer, because it's not about me, it's about the person that is asking them for a favor. So when you just cold email someone, it's very easy to be ignored. When you approach it as ask someone that knows someone to connect you with that someone, it's much easier, and you're improving your chances of that person really paying attention to what you have to tell them. And after scheduling those Zoom coffee meetings, follow up with that person. And also before that meeting ends, ask them, who do you think in your network that I should speak to based on the questions that I asked you, based on where I want to go, based on them having a unique career trajectory that it wasn't very streamlined. And all of them recommended that I speak with 2 other people, either connected me directly or they just said reach out. Even when they said reach out and I just emailed them on LinkedIn or texted them on LinkedIn, they still responded and they booked something. So when you approach networking as a net of people, and not just I'm just randomly found myself here and I never follow up, so it never leads anywhere. I've been to a million events and I never followed up. I don't know who I saw in this event. I don't think anyone remembers me. But the people that I spent half an hour on a Zoom coffee meeting, I would still reach out to them after I spoke to the people that they recommended I speak with. And I would tell them, thank you so much for the recommendation. It was great getting to know that person. He helped me with this and that. And this way you keep, you're top of mind if that person hears something. And you keep telling them, if you hear something about this or that I'm interested in, please let me know. You're not asking them to hire you. You're just asking them to keep you top of mind.
For that great advice, we would like to conclude our today's episode of ITL Voices. Thanks, Yonida, for all the insightful advice and the discussion we had today.